60 Minutes Overtime.
Intense pressure on both of my temples.
In the first story, we said, is this Russia?
At first, it felt like an electric shock.
Second round of stories,
I felt like I couldn't really walk.
we felt this is starting to look like Russia. And in this story, our sources are telling us that it's Russia.
If this is what we've seen with the hundreds of cases, I can assure you that this has become probably Putin's biggest victory. In his own mind, this has been Russia's biggest victory against the West.
I'm Michael Ray, I'm a producer at 60 Minutes.
I'm Oriana Zill de Granados, and I'm a producer at 60 Minutes.
We've been reporting on this story since 2018. Our ongoing investigation now 5 years into the Havana Syndrome.
I had worked on a story about the opening of the U.S. Embassy in Cuba, and we very early on started approaching people within the intelligence community and the Department of State to find out what these incidents were. That led us to China, which really expanded the story beyond Havana, Cuba.
Mark Lindsay is a State Department security officer who worked in the U.S. consulate in Guangzhou, China.
So Mark Lindsay's an interesting story. He told us a lot of things when we first met him that we kind of couldn't believe. And now, years later, we believe everything he told us.
The sound is like nothing I've ever heard before.
Was this subtle? Like, did I hear that?
No, it was actually somewhat loud. I heard it about 3 or 4 times, always in the same spot, always over my son's crib, and always right before we would go to bed.
He suffered through migraines, dizziness, memory issues, and his big concern was that nobody believed him.
Mark Lindsay believes he was targeted because of his work. He uses top-secret equipment to analyze electronic threats to diplomatic missions.
This was a directed standoff attack against my apartment.
It was a weapon.
Of course it was a weapon.
An energy weapon.
Absolutely.
What sort of energy is this that we're talking about?
I believe it's RF, radio frequency energy, in the microwave range.
I'll tell you, when I landed from China, I literally was kissing the ground.
So in our second story in 2022, we did 2 parts, and we were really focused on the cases we've heard domestically in the U.S.
We met Robin Garfield in 2019. He's a Commerce Department official who told us that he, his wife, and 2 children were repeatedly hit in China.
Who said, yes, I was hit overseas, I came back for treatment, and then I felt like it happened again to me in a hotel in Philadelphia.
I was woken up by what I thought was an intruder. I thought, okay, maybe the kids are awake, so I went over to the other room to check on them. I saw an extremely eerie scene where both were thrashing in their beds, asleep. And I went over to my daughter, and I put my head down next to her head. I heard a very distinct sound just right there, sort of like water rushing. This is the most difficult aspect for me, are the children who've been impacted, both mine as well as many others.
I think the best explanation, the most plausible, is that it's a high-power microwave weapon.
We haven't found the smoking gun, literally, but there is a lot of scientific research out there that is concrete on this type of technology.
James Benford is a physicist and leading authority on microwaves.
Microwaves go through glass, they go through brick, they go through practically everything. It's been developed widely in perhaps a dozen countries. The primary countries are the United States, Russia, and China.
Before our 2022 pieces came out, the CIA and the intelligence community released an interim assessment which said that they did not believe that there was a worldwide campaign by a foreign adversary to harm Americans. We interviewed CIA Director William Burns about the assessment.
The intelligence community assesses now that there's not a single cause that it would explain the more than 1,000 incidents that have been reported since Havana in 2016. We've also not yet been able to link a foreign state actor or an external device or mechanism to any of those cases.
You understand how frustrating your comments must be to some of these people, and yet the director of the CIA is saying, we can't connect the dots.
We're not at a position yet where we can offer hard evidence that would connect all those dots.
So here we are now, and they all say, nothing to see here, move along.
The Director of National Intelligence said last year it's very unlikely a foreign adversary is responsible.
It's discouraging because it directly counters everything we're learning in our reporting.
Christo Grozev is probably one of the most renowned Russia experts, investigative journalist. He was able to find an email that contained a receipt for work that had been done by a member of a unit in Russia called 29155.
Which told us that this particular unit had been engaged with somewhere, somehow, empirical tests of a directed energy unit.
There it is.
There it is.
Written down in black and white.
It's the closest to a receipt you can have for this.
This has never for us been an adversarial process, because who are we to tell the intelligence community of the United States we're right and you're wrong? That's not our job. Our job is to ask questions and share information that we've learned that may counter the narrative that's out there. And ask the questions of, if you say there's no evidence of a foreign adversary involved, then what are we looking at?